year, ERO CRAS is the theme. It means the antiphon of the Advent. And I propose to do a concert of the Laudario di Cortona, the ones that are dedicated to the temporal cycle. It means to the cycle of the life of Jesus Christ. For me, Nino Pirotto was very influential because he was one of the most eminent musicologists in Italy, but not only in Italy, because he was also a scholar in Harvard. He said something that really struck me. The first time I read this article, I was really impressed because he said the history of music that we make now is only the tip of the iceberg. I mean, what we see out of the surface of the water is the written music. What we don't see, that is the mountain under the surface of the water, is the oral transmissed music, is the oral music. Doesn't mean that it's only the popular music, but it's the cultivated music that was not transmitted in a written way. And this is, knowing this, we have always, when you go to reconstruct the performance practice of medieval music, but also early Renaissance music, we have to go in that direction, knowing that what we are doing, what we have left, is not everything. It's only a kind of small part of it. And then also the sound, everything around has to be put in a different context.
We tend to think, and because they are, like the voice and the plucked instruments, have been very complementary since the 16th century and before. But then when you get to work, there's always a moment when you say, we are complementary, but the mechanics feel different. So there's always a bit of translation.
Yeah, there was that time when we were hanging out on a long, it was a fourth with a bass, but the bass drops out and then it's just a fourth, and that's no. So you change the note a little bit.
Things that with the rest of the voices wouldn't be contrapuntal mistakes, but then when you have only two voices and one that disappears under, then you realize, it's like you're showing the piece naked and it's not appropriate. So you have to dress it with other sounds, and that is the kind of work that you hear the piece different, and you have to react with your sound differently to the vihuelas and to another singer with the vihuelas. It's a bit of a minefield, but the very nice one. When I'm singing, it's like I'm running a race against the vihuelas, and so I will sing this, and then when they are playing the solos, I kind of like have a game for myself. For example, what of what I sang appears there, and then I go like and then like, Morales, so clever, He was a very clever composer. So by taking them out of their original function, it becomes more a game of mirrors. How does it reflect back the mass? And if it never reflects that quite, he always changed something. Or by virtue of repeating the same in all three voices, it's like you take something that you really like from a painting, and you take like a little detail, and then you multiply it for a whole mass, and that is like very obsessive and at the same time very beautiful.
We call the program the braying harp. So there is like an association with the sound of the donkey, so it's like a little bit of a funny sound. And actually what you will hear is that there are some wooden pegs that hold the strings on the soundboard of the harp. and those can be rotated. And when they are rotated towards the string, they slightly touch the string, and this produces like a buzzing sound. And it's a little bit ugly sound or a little bit nasal, but this was used in the late Middle Ages, and actually we find harps like that even in the 17th century in Italy, for example. And it's a sound that allowed the harp to really be much, much louder. They said in sources like almost like trombones. And we thought of really building a whole program around this special sound of the harp to have this, let's say, special landscape. And it's a sound you really would not expect from a harp. Being like a musician in early music, you will never be able to stop being a student, because there's always so much to learn, so many instruments to learn. So it's like always like something really new to discover. And I feel like, for example, I come from the pedal harp. So I studied classical music, contemporary music, and then I started working and performing, and only at myself at a later stage I really fell in love for early music and started that path. But it feels like always there's a new harp to discover or a new repertoire to discover. And we actually met in Basel, even though we both studied before in the Netherlands. So when we met, we sort of find out that we had a lot of friends in common, and that Daniel has an ensemble with a dear friend of me. So it was like, already we thought, okay, we should find the opportunity to play together.
In fact, we had a class together, and then we met a few hours later on the plane, and we're like, oh, you're also going to the Netherlands.
I think that is a very, very unique festival in many ways. I can only speak from my point of view as a musician, as a performer, and having the chance to perform music that is so valuable to us and for the audience in general. And here in this festival, there is always a chance to bring something new, something that is sometimes a challenge, something that doesn't fit every festival. I think that one of the reasons why one should be supporting and defending this initiative somehow.
In this festival in particular, you can really choose according to your own taste and according to your own sensibility, and then try it out for an audience that is going to be welcoming. And that is very important, because in that case, in these kind of festivals, then you can really experiment also. And be surprised by the reaction of things that you think that maybe the audience is not going to like, and then they end up actually liking very much, and they're okay, so next time I can include this, I can include that.
So the program is a reconstruction of the so-called Golden Mass, as it was likely celebrated at the cathedral in Cambrai at the end of the 15th century. This means that we perform essentially the liturgy for the Annunciation as it occurred in the middle of Advent, in the middle of December. This involves a performance of Dufay's splendid Missa Ecce Ancilla Domini, which is clearly written for the Annunciation. And it also includes the propers, the plain chant propers, taken from a manuscript associated with the Burgundian court chapel. And unusually, it also involves a reconstructed liturgical drama. This is quite exciting. It's essentially a reconstruction of a very long-standing medieval Renaissance tradition in which members of the choir would essentially act out parts of the biblical text. So at its most obvious, that means that we sing from the historical notation, which, as you mentioned, involves a single large book most of the time placed on our music stand, which, with the parts arranged in a specific way on the page, you have the soprano, the tenor, the alto, and the bass in this manuscript, which means that the parts are sort of separate on the page. It gives a different experience for the singers in using it. But also the system of notation itself is really extremely different. It takes a lot of effort and time to become really fluent and comfortable with it. It shapes everything, I suppose, the way we interact with this music, our rehearsal process, the way we think about the music, the way we prepare the music, the way we perform the music, obviously. You'll see that quite often members of the group are pointing up and down. This is a very obvious visual example of what we do. And this is to indicate
to whoever else might be singing on your part in particular. What sort of accidentals we're adding, I suppose you could say. Certain notes need to be sharpened or made flatter depending on the context, the musical context. And so if we point up, then it's not telling my neighbor that he's singing flat, it's telling him that I'm about to sing a sharp, so don't sing a natural at the same time.
Põhiline on seisund, see tähendab niisugune vaimne olek, mida me taotleme ja selle erinevad nüansid. Jõulumuusikas on palju rõõmu, on sellist ülevat austust, rahu, on sära, et need on kõik sellised seisundid, mida me püüame oma kavaga edasi anda. Jõulukava idee või tellimus tuli Lukaselt, aga ülejäänud programm oli meie enda vaba kompositsioon. Et me tahtsime kindlasti esitada meie oma rahvakoraale, mis on väga huvitavad meile endile ja kindlasti ka varajast polüfooniat, mis on selle aastaajaga seotud.